Hey there, thanks again for joining me. I'm going to take a slightly different approach with today's live stream, and that's to do sort of a Q&A. So I'm going to address two questions that have come up just recently from a couple of folks in the channel, which I really appreciate folks asking questions. The two things I'm going to focus on today, one is a very important question, is how to get expression maps and percussion maps, that sort of thing, to show up in all of your future projects, and how to get them to sort of be recognized globally, because you put a lot of work into expression maps and percussion maps. It's frustrating when you then have to import them and stuff like that. So I'm going to give you a demonstration on how that works, and this is sort of a follow-up as well to Monday's live stream, which was about working with percussion specifically. So hopefully it builds on that. But before I do that, just in a few minutes, I'm going to take a quick second here to do a demo that was requested about how to do channel switching, but in Kontakt directly. So I've done this demonstration through VE Pro before, or something similar in VE Pro, and it might have different implications. If you're working outside VE Pro, you want to work directly with Kontakt as a multi. So I thought, rather than try and explain that in text, I would just do a brief demo, and then we'll get into the other topic, which is the expression maps. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take myself off the camera here, and I'm going to create a violin, a single player. All right, so I'm going to go to violin and open that up. I can see I've got a single player right there. Hey there, Shubas. This is all. I think you had asked this question, so this is hopefully going to help you out with Kontakt. So I'm going to go ahead and basically take this solo instrument and connect it up to a Kontakt instrument for Stradivari violin, which is a Native Instruments plugin. So I'm going to go here to the play mode, and I'm just going to add an instrument. I'm going to go down to Native Instruments and add Kontakt 7. Once that loads up, I'm going to go ahead and find Stradivari violin. I'm going to go ahead and just load up a simple patch here. And when you're doing part of this is not just how do you connect Kontakt to Dorico, but how do you do it with channel switching, which is an approach that I definitely promote through my videos. I found it really helpful for a variety of reasons that you could ask about, or you could check out my other videos. But part of what this demonstration is also doing is setting up channel switching on the Stradivari. So in order to do that, we don't need two instances. We only need one instance of Kontakt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the endpoint configuration. I'm going to rename it to Strad Violin, just so that it's very easy to see what's going on. And that way, when I actually have the instrument in my thing here, I'm going to go ahead and add it to my flow. So I select the flow in the bottom, check off violin. Now I go into the play mode. I can see it there as a track, but it does not have any instrument assigned to it. So I'm going to go ahead and assign it to Strad Violin. I'm going to make the port, I think I want the port to be 1. I am kind of doing this on the fly because I run into problems or errors. I want to run into the same errors as you folks out there, so I can sometimes watching somebody go through the actual process is more helpful than watching them go through a manicured process. So okay, I'm connected this here to my instrument, and I'm going to go ahead and why is that not opening up? There it is. I'm just going to put that over there so it stays visible. And I am going to, I've got my own expression map set up here. This is what my expression map looks like. Where's my expression map window? Sorry that it's not coming up here, so this is weird. It should come up my expression map window. What I'll do is maybe go up here to expression maps. There it is. For some reason the window is not opening. And I've got this expression map here. This is kind of my basic expression map that I use for almost all new instruments. And I have a collection of bass types and then add-ons. I've talked about that in other videos. I don't want to go into that too much. What I want to take note of here is natural and staccato, because these are going to be the channel switches that I do. Natural, as you can see, is set up with a channel switch on channel 1, and staccato is set up on a channel switch of channel 3. So none of the other settings are really particularly important here. The most important thing for this demonstration is what the absolute channel switch is set for these two, 1 for natural and 3 for staccato. That is the expression map that's assigned over here in this drop-down box. So it's the one that's going to apply to this instrument. So what I want to do over in Kontakt is I want to basically duplicate this instrument. What I'm going to do is something like this, change it to rack view. And I am going to look up Strad violin again. And I'm going to add another instance of it. So now I have 2 instances, okay? Like so. And in this top instance, I'm going to configure this to just refer to port 1, or sorry, the first port, but channel 1. And this one over here is going to be channel 2. Or sorry, channel 3 was what we had staccato on. Right, so this is going to be my legato, or sorry, sustains, natural. This is going to be my staccato. I could even save it as, I have some saved presets here. You could save them as snapshots if you wanted, so that you could reuse them in the future. But I'll just leave that right there. You can see clearly which one is 1 and which one is 3. And that's all we really need to do at this point. So I'm going to move that back over there. Come in here. We've got our expression map assigned. So if I come in here and I'm going to go into write mode, and I'm just going to enter in, you know, a simple C major arpeggio here. Oops. Always simple until it's not. All right, and I'm going to duck out of there, and I'm going to take these notes here, I'm going to repeat them again, but I'm going to have these middle ones be staccato, so I'm just hitting the staccato sign over there. Now what I would normally do also is come down to my lower zone and check the key editor and make sure that my playing techniques lane is displayed correctly. So I can see here there's nothing really showing up in the playing techniques, which is actually a little unexpected. That should show up. Let's see if we get playback. All right, I am not getting playback at the moment, and this is actually kind of desirable that I run into problems, because this is part of the purpose of demonstration, is to demonstrate how these problems get solved. So I've got my violin. This is the process I would go through to kind of troubleshoot this situation. And these kinds of things I think happen for a lot of users. So this is a good sort of live example of how we'd go about this. So I've got my violin set up here. I know I've got notes that are supposed to be triggering playback. Going into play mode, I see right away what the problem is. I don't have an instrument selected. So I had set up the Strad violin, I had set up my expression map, but I had not actually directed it to that instrument. So now we're going to go back, and when we select this and we play it, all right, we're still not getting playback. There may be something up. The port got changed to 1. These kinds of things are tricky, huh? So it's definitely, I'm feeling that there's something buggy going on right now with my Dorico. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this project. I'm going to close it, because this is, of course, one of those things that happens. I'm going to quit Dorico, and then I'm going to restart it. Sometimes this is the way it is. You know, you have to shut it down, you have to restart it. It's buggy, it's not listening, it's not doing what it's told, and that's the way it goes. So I'm going to open it up again take myself off the screen, and see if we have any better luck here. All right, that's looking a little bit more like what I'm expecting. Okay, so I have no idea why that was not working, but that's just the way it is. What I can do now that I've restarted Dorico is I can see that I have natural here, and then I have staccato, and then I have natural again. I want to point out, just to reiterate, I've expressed this in other videos, but I want to make sure that it's very clear because it can be a real sticking point. What you see down here in the playing technique lane at the bottom there, this lane right here, what you see there is what your expression map is actually registering, right? So the fact that I've marked this note as staccato does not mean that it will show up as staccato down here inherently. Only if my expression map is configured to recognize a staccato and do something with it will it show up here. So if you don't see these here and you see it in your notation, it means your expression map doesn't have a definition for it, and that should be your next stop. So let's play this back. I'm expecting to hear 4 natural notes, 4 staccato notes, 4 natural notes again. So that's what I'm getting. And if we look over here in my instance of Kontakt, we should see the volume levels switching between these two. Right? So you could see sustain, switching to that one, and back. And the reason it's doing that is because this second one is accepting MIDI on channel 3, this one's accepting MIDI on channel 1, and my expression map is saying always send naturals out on channel 1, always send staccatos out on channel 3. That's what the expression map is doing. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question very clearly. And if you have any follow-up, let me know. But now the next thing I wanted to talk about is a strategy for making sure that your expression maps and percussion maps are always going to load in your projects. What I like to do here is I actually like to have a project specifically for endpoints. So this is a whole family of endpoints. I'm going to load this up. Let me actually just save this demo file so that it's there in the future if I want it. And I actually create a Dorico project that's just an endpoint manager. So it has all, in this case, has all my percussion instruments in it. And this is what that looks like. Just going to load up a couple of things here. Okay. So what I have here is I have percussion instruments that are common to my playback template. And this is how I manage my playback template here under the play menu in playback templates. I have a playback template I created. This is a custom one called VE Pro Dissolvable. Actually, my newest one is called VE Pro Dynamic Orchestra. And these are the endpoints that it contains. And I find it helpful, rather than having a million endpoints, you know, one for my celeste and one for my harp and one for my violin, so on and so forth, having a laundry list, I actually group them into families. And these are actually my VE Pro instances as well. So I have an instance for strings, I have an instance for percussion, and inside that percussion endpoint are all of these. And anytime I want to add or edit or modify any of these for my percussion endpoint, I open up this project and I make my modifications and then I resave them. So that is how this works. So let's look at exactly what I'm doing. Let's go into my most recent edition, which is this Majestic Pro snare from the Berlin Berlin series percussion. And what I did there was I added it in VE Pro, but you could also, just like my demo a few minutes ago, you could add this directly in Kontakt. You don't have to use VE Pro, but you configure the instrument here so that in this project you get the desired playback. And I'm getting that playback here. So I'm getting that playback according to these different note head setups. That's not the topic of this discussion, but if I'm getting the sounds that I'm expecting here in this project, then what I do is I go in here and I can actually save this whole project endpoint like this. I can go ahead and, actually what I like to do is I just open up the endpoint configuration. That's since they're all using VE Pro, but this would be the same if they were all using one multi of Kontakt. I've got all these signed instruments and they're talking to different ports of VE Pro, but these could also be different ports within any kind of hosting situation or multi. And I have a selection of expression maps. Here the expression maps are all nulled out. And then here the percussion maps are set. And now I just click Save Endpoint Configuration. It always asks me, you know, do I want to save this here? I hit OK. It's going to ask me if I want to rewrite or overwrite because I've done this before. All right, and I'll hit OK. Now to get that into loading in all of my future projects, this is what I do. I go up to my play menu, down to playback techniques, or sorry, templates. I find the playback template that I want to use most commonly and I edit it. I make sure that that library is there. If it's not there, or if the endpoint that I've just saved is not in this list, then I add it. If it is already in this list and I kind of want to update it, then I unlock it and I bounce this version number up one. That's all I have to do. Hit OK. And now any project in the future that I hit apply and close on this project, this playback template will work. But what if I want it to just load up automatically? Well, then what I do for all new projects is I go up to my standard Dorico preferences. I go to play, and up here at the top, the default playback template, I choose my template. So what this means is that every time I load a project, it's going to use this default playback template. And the fact that I changed the version number means that it's updating with my newest endpoint. So I hope that clarifies this structure of how you create expression maps or percussion maps. You assign them to instruments, and saving them into a playback template via an endpoint is really one of the most reliable and sort of workflow steady ways to make sure that those changes are always applying. It's a little bit roundabout. I wish it was simpler, but it's still reliable, still works well. It's not too hard. You just have to know to change that version number in order to make sure that it always refreshes. And I highly recommend using a project to manage your endpoint for families. So I have a strings one where I've got all my strings. Whenever I want to add a new library, whenever I want to add a new instrument, percussion's a great example where, you know, just recently I needed to use the triangle and this snare or a güiro. So, you know, I bring it, I know where to go. I go into my endpoint manager, I add the instrument, I configure it so that it works in that project. I save the endpoint that contains all of the instruments in that project, and then I load that into my playback template, and it's just a great, reliable way to make sure that my workflow doesn't really skip a beat. So yes, there was some kind of mystery articulation happening there on my rim shot. Mysteries do occur, and I hope you can tell from the first part of this Q&A that, yeah, things happen. Sometimes I have to shut down Dorico and restart it. I don't know why, but I just do. It's quicker to do than to not. Sometimes I have to restart my computer. I wish it wasn't that way, but for all the other things that Dorico and my computer make possible, I'm grateful that it's not more complicated than that. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I am going to actually maybe focus my Wednesdays, which are kind of a steady live stream at a specific time, on Q&As, Mondays and Fridays, covering other topics that are kind of top of mind for me. So if you have questions that you want elaboration or you want me to cover on the Wednesday Q&A, then leave those in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you on Friday. All right, take care. Bye.